Hello, everyone. This is spiritual teacher and intuitive healer Matthew John, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by my good friend, Ascension guide and host of the very popular spiritual New Age podcast called The Beyond the Ordinary Show, John Burgos. John, thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to be here, Matthew. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, a topic that's been kind of on both of our minds lately, and I know you shared with me personally that you just actually had a bit of an epitome or an experience about this, and something that I'm really passionate about looking more into lately is the discussion around the divine masculine and the divine feminine energies, and if there is a change going on in the way that we're relating to the divine masculine energies, to the divine feminine energies. We can even bring in the topic of gender norms and the topic of a shifting in the way that we view masculinity and femininity in general. And I find it so fascinating that here we are in 2023, we're entering all sorts of new territory as a planetary collective. For example, entering the new territory of AI being a big part of our daily life. You know, technology really starting to become a component that's you can't go without, just living as a human in the West in 2023. But also things like we're rethinking the way that we view masculinity and femininity. And there's a huge percentage of people that consider themselves non-binary, even transgender. And you being someone that's worked for even more years than myself with people one-on-one and kind of viewed firsthand that relationship both between masculine and femininity, and also in the context of romantic relationships. And I just love to hear your thoughts, whatever's coming through you and whatever's been coming to you on this topic.
I love this topic. I've been living this topic really, I believe, for most of my life, to be honest with you. So it's very intimate and personal with me. And I've been seeing the shifts through the timelines.
Yeah.
Over the years, shifting tremendously. And the conversations come up and the roles, if you will, are melding. And that's why we have this, it's neither either nor that.
Yes.
It's either neither nor that. We're redefining, we're collapsing identities around it. I grew up being very feminine energy. I looked up to women in my life. I didn't have a strong masculine figure that I wanted to look up to. I loved my father, but the masculine role model wasn't really there for me. So I grew up with a lot of empathy, compassion, a lot of feminine qualities, extremely sensitive. And being a Latino heterosexual man with a lot of sensitivities and empathy, and then living in the South and trying to define myself through the norms of what the masculine is supposed to be, was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Very difficult for me. And so when I started this awakening processes and years in and through different ceremonies and practices, there was an awakening of a masculine that was happening in me. That as a masculine, I wasn't carrying it because I was pushing it away.
Yeah.
I was shaming it. I didn't trust the masculine. Women listening to this, if you understand how many men don't trust the masculine as well, it's actually quite impressive and sad, but sad only because we're losing a part of ourselves by shutting that out, but we're acclimating to different energies. So it's a collective that we've been adjusting to in the way that not only the masculine plays as a role model through the individual, but the masculine energies that have been defining the paradigm that we've been living in. And so the shift of that is that we're not going away from the masculine. What's happening is that the masculine is learning and leaning into and acclimating to a more feminine energy. A softer, becoming more intuitive, becoming more empathic. And so redefining, making those roles okay for myself, the ones that I had and that I've had all along, And embracing those actually brought out more of my masculine qualities. As feminine as I may have seen because of my sensitivity, embracing them actually awakened the masculine in me that was confused, that was shameful, that I was afraid to bring up because I didn't know what destruction it might cause.
I love that point of that. It's something that isn't really even discussed much in this topic, is men themselves not really trusting the masculine. And I can absolutely share that experience with you as well. Growing up around more women in my family than men. And I remember, for example, I think I was in like second grade, and there was this playground game where it was boys versus girls. And I forget, it was like some tag game. And then you had to hide in the playground thing. But for some reason, I always played on the girls' team, even though I was a boy. They liked having me on their team. I don't know why. I guess I kind of evened things out a bit. But, not just with that, throughout my experience of being in school, junior high, high school, I always kind of remember feeling this fear and this resentment around this hyper masculinity that the jocks would portray. I never was that great at sports, at least not in high school. I actually, when I got out of high school, and I think I felt more safe because high school for me was not that great of an experience. I wasn't in the popular niches really at all. It was kind of this loner that people didn't understand, and the only thing that really connected me with others in high school was my humor, which I guess was helpful. And, I think became funny because of, feeling so disconnected from other boys in high school. But outside of high school into my 20s, I actually really dove, I think, much deeper into masculine. And I became very good at sports in my 20s, which was odd. Most people become very good at sports when they're a teenager, right? But I think I felt safer. But I still, I just remember being out at bars when I was still, drinking and partying in my 20s, and just the archetype of the big 6'5", buff guy that would just get drunk and get violent. And it's like, and I never understood that. It never vibrated with me as something I would ever want to be or ever want to emanate, is that sort of the violence or possessive or unbending will of the toxic masculine, right? And I think because of that, and perhaps just because growing up around, a lot of women in my family, I was always very sensitive, I think, even from high school, to like the perspective and the needs of women. I've always been, even though I'm a heterosexual male, I've always been very feminine. And, I really embrace my hair, for example, not just because of the feminine aspect of it, but also because I really respect indigenous men, that they keep their hair. And even though I'm not indigenous in this lifetime, I have been in so many lifetimes before this. So I really value my hair. But I share that with you. And I also never really trusted the masculine. And it took, different parts of my life going more into the experience of the masculine, and other parts being in more of the experience of the feminine. And luckily, I think I find myself right now in a very good balance between the two energies, which I think is why I can connect really well and serve all genders.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And you brought the point of the hypermasculine, the aggressive masculine. And those are all fractals of those parts of our power that we're afraid to embrace. And that's really what's going on in the world anyway. So anywhere where we're in judgment or we're in suffering of someone else, we'll call it, those are aspects of ourselves that we're awakening to and learning not to judge. Embracing the power of our hypermasculinity and our hyperfemininity. And we're all going into this acclamation of energies that releases the judgment, can hold compassion and empathy. And in that, we no longer have to be afraid of those parts of ourselves that we would consider shadow or dark.
Right.
Because our capacity to do harm is overridden by the heart essence that's leading everything.
Right.
So again, the fear is like, what harm will I cause, or
Yeah.
what harm will be done to me? Balancing that, we're really attuning into a frequency that's what we would call the new earth energy. It's
Yeah.
balance. You're going to see it happening in nature around you. You may see things imploding or destroying or going through their transformation, but what's underneath that is what's created by the fertile soil of your becoming. And so we're we're going through that metamorphosis. And so the balance, the gender equalities, this merging of not necessarily identifying with sexual roles,
Mm-hmm.
but really being in the essence of what our flow is. It's what's liberating the wars that we've been creating with ourselves through these forms of separation. The fractals of it are everywhere, and it's so beautiful that it's happening in our roles as we identify as either masculine or feminine or neutral.
Yeah, I love that, everything you just said. And, I've been meditating on that recently as well, is on a planetary scale, we're so used to living in constant states of war. There's always been some sort of conflict going on, geopolitical conflict, literally since World War I, I believe. And if we go back through history, most of human history is highlighted by wars, right? And as we start to enter, as you said, into the new earth frequency itself, we're naturally starting to realize that this idea of oneness is a real thing, and it's really more reality than we've ever experienced on this planet before.
Great.
Right, as we move into that, and this hyper, like what we're used to on the planet from like the planetary age of Pisces, which we're exiting into the age of Aquarius, we're used to this hyper dualistic juxtaposition between men and women, masculine and feminine. And, you go back to what was life like, for example, in the American household for most, or what it was supposed to be, at least what the television told people was supposed to be back in the 40s and the 50s, right? The traditional role of the man earns, the income, and the woman takes care of the children, and the woman does whatever the man says, and, just doesn't step on toes and things like that. And like, it's so shifting now where we're starting to get to a place where there is no norm anymore with a man's role and a woman's role, or whatever gender, in whatever type of romantic relationship. And now polyamorous relationships are becoming much more in vogue. There's some people that think this is not a good thing. I think it's a great thing, because I think it's a sign, it's a real world manifestation of this entrance into oneness that is the experience of the human race, where we're all starting to realize on some subconscious level, and even now on conscious levels, people that like our audiences that are watching this, that are in the new age community, right? Realizing that we're all, I am you, you are I am the plant is I, we are all each other. And thus this rigidity, and we could say even this war, we could call it, between, the sexism between, and, we go back, and it's not hard to find infinite examples of the patriarchy taking advantage of the feminine, right? And it's luckily starting to shift in a real world. And I wonder where we're going to be in 20 years, and 50 years, and 100 years, and 500 years on this planet, right? What are the roles going to be like? It'll probably be a lot different even than now.
Oh, I agree 100% with it being different. And all the roles, there's not a wrong role.
Yeah.
There's not a right and there's not a wrong. There's the ways in which the soul is choosing to experience the merging of the Heiros Gamos. And that's happening within ourselves. The Heiros Gamos of merging in union with a feminine or a masculine, depending on how you might identify.
Can you explain that term for myself and the audience?
Heiros Gamos is the term where the feminine meets the masculine, and they intertwine, not in a hook type of way, but 1 and 1 forms 10. It's where the energy uplifts into
Wow.
the highest possible octave through an embodied state as the feminine joins with the masculine. And that can happen in lots of different ways.
Would you call that,
And
is that a manifestation perhaps of like a dual ascension? Like when two ascending individuals join together and then accelerate their ascension as a couple.
And again, the Heiros Gamos has been defined as when you meet your divine partner,
right?
Your soulmate, your twin flame, and all that. But really, that can't happen unless we meet it inside of us.
True.
It can happen. And so the shifts that are happening, whether you're monogamous or polyamorous or however you identify it, you have your own unique journey there. And it's not for us to say, this is right and this is wrong. This is the right tradition. This is the only way to get there. There's multiple pathways. There's unlimited doorways that we have access through realms that our eyes can't perceive, but that our souls are guiding us to. And if we just pay attention and listen to the integrity of our heart, our energetic field, the wisdom of our body as it's leading us, you're going to be taken through the doorway that's exactly right for you.
How can we kind of figure out what is a shadow aspect in this context of, and of course, these shadow aspects, something like me, the type of work I do, we might find that it relates back to childhood. It might relate back to a parent. It might relate back to the ancestral experience, and it might relate back to past lives, right? Mm-hmm. But in the context of the present moment in this lifetime, how can someone figure out, okay, how am I out of balance in this relationship between masculine and feminine, and how can I get more into balance?
Oh, that's such a great question. And the answer is really simplistic, and we can go deeper into it, and perhaps that's another conversation for us. But wherever there isn't light, it's the shadow. Whenever we have we have an opinion and we go back, whenever we feel fear or contraction can have its intelligence. The shadow plays its role. The darkness is here to transmute and to help us acclimate to new energies also, and to work with us in a symbiotic way. We're human. Mm-hmm. So y'all are not going to get out of being human.
Yeah.
None of us. We came here. That is our soul's gift to us, to be human. Don't be so quick to want to leave it. Mm-hmm. I've got to get to the light. I've got to acclimate to this. No. Enjoy the contrast, but have intimacy with it. Get to know it within yourself. And as you do that, you discover your own divinity. So if there's fear, shadow, let me be with that shadow part. If there's apprehension, is this discernment, or is this where I'm holding back because I'm afraid I'm too much, or I'm afraid I'm not enough? Is this something that's coming up and saying, I might not belong if I believe this, or if I act this, or if I project in this way, or I may belong so much that I'm so empathic that I'm not going to be able to take the overload of energy that comes to me. And we're learning to balance all the dualistic parts of all those fears and judgments and entrainment that we've been enculturated into, that we're just unraveling in the field because the past and the way that it was created through the patriarchy, mm-hmm. not judging the patriarchy as bad. Mm-hmm. It's been a stage of our evolution. Mm-hmm. It's what's allowed us to get to where we are now.
Yeah.
And now we're just redefining what's possible.
Yeah.
And we're creating a new world. And not only are we creating a new world, you mentioned earlier, as we're stepping in or getting to that, I would say that the new world's here. We're just adjusting our vision and our frequency.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's coming. I think we're in it.
We're in it. And we're the early adopters of it.
Yeah.
And it's just we're setting the example for those that will come behind us, right? And we're the first navigators. We're like explorers trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Right? So we can kind of teach others that are going to be coming behind us, right?
And we're not even figuring it out. We're being guided to it. The figuring out thing, what we're figuring out is how to drop these pain points that have taken us away from being in our intuition, from using those guideposts that we have available to us. And we're cleaning up our GPS system, if you will.
Yeah. Absolutely. Something I've noticed, one of the biggest obstacles that people have to often move through on their ascension journey, on their awakening journey, is they're internally becoming something totally new, and the people around them can't see it. And they're afraid to try to show that to the people that know them. And this can manifest in so many different ways. And the most common way is like someone trying to step into a new service role that they feel called to. For example, being a psychic, being a healer, leaving Christianity and moving into more of the New Age sort of way of going about things. But not just that, people that have been going through this negotiation within of the masculine and the feminine, and they realize they don't vibe any longer with the traditional monogamous heterosexual paradigm, and they're gay, or they're non-binary, or they want to be transgender, or they want to be in a polyamorous situation. But they've grown up in a family that would never understand that. They've grown up in a church that would never, in a society. You said yourself, you grew up in the South, right? In the United
States, yeah,
right, and Latino. So it's like, what advice would you give to people that? And I'm sure there's people watching this. I'm 100% sure somebody's watching this, and they feel like there's this piece of authenticity, whether it has to do with their gender or their sexual orientation or just the role they want to play in the world. Maybe, they don't want to work in healthcare and they want to be a Reiki healer and a psychic or whatever it is. Like, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to shift, but they're afraid to show themselves to the world, to the people around them?
You think there'd be a quick answer for that? And I want to give you the compassionate answer, because it's really important. Because we can bypass it and we can go straight to the wormhole and say, this is what you need to do. And the answer would be great, but embracing that answer really requires a depth of compassion for why that fear comes up. It's like, I'm afraid. No, we've been culturally and environmentally conditioned into that fear. It's trauma-based fear. And so to really go in and say, why am I afraid? What's here? Let me be with that part that's afraid. It doesn't even have to discuss with me why it's afraid. It can just tell me that it's afraid, and I can sit with it without needing the justification of it, without looking for the path out, trying to force it into something that it's not ready for. So great questions to ask is, what am I wanting that I'm not getting? Understanding, community, compassion, freedom, being received, whatever it is. What am I wanting that I'm not getting? Wanting to switch careers. I want to open my heart. I want to share my truth, whatever it is. How does it make me feel that I'm not getting it? It's the second question. And really get into the feelings. The second you go through the first list of how does it make me feel? Wonderful. That's the shallow list. Put it aside and go 2-3 levels deeper. How else does it make me feel? I'm not wanted. I'm not good enough. I don't belong. I'm not understood. It's not safe.
It's not safe. It really goes back to the primal brain, even way back in early Earth days. If we were part of that, or our DNA at least goes back to that. If you didn't go along with kind of the general paradigm or belief system of the community,
you'd be thrown at the cave.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so it goes that, and it also goes to our family. It goes to religion. It goes to school. Right. It's so ingrained. Again, it's a trauma, really.
Yeah.
So it's, again, to be gentle with that part of you that's in the trauma response and just hold it. And it's like, when you understand that and you can hold those parts of you and give yourself permission to be sad, to be angry, rage, cry, be confused, or let the switch flip and go off. Don't judge this the word is, but hold that place. And it's like, okay, how can I be there in a different way where this doesn't have to be true anymore? And so as you navigate that, and it can be a quick process, or it can be a lifetime, just depending on where you are. Always, if you feel like you're stuck in a place like that, reach out and ask for support. Work with Matthew. Come listen to the show. Go on my membership. There's so many people that can work with a psychologist, work with someone who does part or shadow work.
Yeah.
That can really hold it. There is so much affordable support or deep support that's available, either or.
We'll let you know at the end how you can work with John or I. But one thing, John, I just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about just the thousands of people I've worked with over the years, and I love taking a bird's eye view at people's lives, the soul's view, so to speak, the soul plan, the thing or the things, plural, that you feel are authentically you, but yet you're afraid on whatever level. And John just went through all the reasons that are very understandable to bring out to the world. Those are the exact things that you have to, because if you don't, you will not, first of all, you won't feel fully fulfilled ever in this life, but also your soul will continue to first nudge you, but then later start to scream, so to speak. And the universe will start to, at first, just poke you, but soon start to kick you. And that's when people have the experience of a dark night of the soul, or the experience of the Tower card in the tarot, happening in their life. And that then becomes the opportunity. That becomes the opening. Sometimes we just need a separation from our daily lives. And actually, that's why traveling, just getting away from your daily life, sometimes that's the opening that is needed to make a change that you've been needing to for a long time. Right. But essentially, I just want to emphasize that, like, those things, it doesn't mean you have to do it today, or an air conditioner is going to fall on your head while you're walking down the street. It's not like that. We have ample time usually to make these shifts.
Sometimes we have ample time.
Sometimes, right. Sometimes not.
Because when it calls you, it's like, it's
right.
There it is, right?
Yeah. But we essentially, we have to at some point. And so sometimes, it is helpful to get away from yourself and travel and or work with someone else that can help you kind of separate from, like, who you're used to being, and show you that that's safe.
Teachers like you, the type of people that I host on the show, the type of work that we do, the currency for that is invaluable, and it's only going to get.
I love that term, spiritual currency. I've never even heard that before. You just said it right now, but it's so true. Just being a part of communities, and for some people, really, it's still the only practical possibility is to be a part of these communities online, and that will probably shift as well over the years, and it already is, and now. Post pandemic, it's wonderful because so many people are starting to get back into in-person communion more than in the past couple of years. But practically speaking, there's so many people I talk to. They live in rural Montana or rural Tennessee or whatever, and there's no one around that is offering this sort of spiritual currency that you're speaking of. So to join in groups, like tune in, listen to the Beyond the Ordinary show. It was one of the most important, actually, pieces of my own spiritual awakening journey. I'll never forget being in Brazil back in 2015 and listening diligently every night to the Beyond the Ordinary show, and just having this vision that somehow, some way, I was going to be a guest on that show someday. And of course, fast forward to 2022. That became a reality, and I'll actually be back on July 18th, and that'll be super fun. How can people find the Beyond the Ordinary show, John?
BeyondTheOrdinaryShow.com. Super easy. Online. Perfect. And if people were asking, let's work one-on-one with me also, and so I started taking on a few one-on-one clients.
Awesome.
Started doing live retreats that started again this year, but I started a membership to make it accessible for everybody, and that membership, if you're just interested, just like. It's what I teach in one-on-ones, but in a group setting. So you get the benefit of everything, because, again, we have to make this work accessible to as many people as possible.
Yes.
Beyond the Ordinary show is free. Retreats obviously aren't. One-on-one aren't, because, again, we get to support and build currency for ourselves as well. But the membership is super accessible, and that's livingintheextraordinary.com.
Okay.
A great word. Yeah.
Livingintheextraordinary.com, and that link is also below. And if you'd like to work with me further, check out my Ascending as One program. We do weekly group calls, usually on Sundays. These are jam-packed calls, 3 hours long, sometimes longer. We go into the astrology for every day for the week ahead. We do a topic for the week, including some group energy healing, a group meditation journey usually, and some group EFT tapping. And then I do live readings. If you join VIP, you get access to my VIP only call, which includes my Sirian Channeling segment, where I'm channeling a group of 5 Sirian extraterrestrial beings. Those are super exciting. And you get a one-on-one private session with me as well outside of class. All the information on Ascending as One, as well as the schedule for the upcoming month, is below in the description box, as well as all of John links as well. John, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I really am looking forward to being on your show. July 18th, I'll be there. And also, I'd love to have you back in the future on here.
Oh my God, absolutely. This has been great. Thank you so much for, again, the time, the conversation, and for sharing your heart and your love of the world. I don't even call it work. It's you sharing your essence and then demonstrating what's possible. It's a gift to all of us. So again, thank you.
And you as well. Thank you. You are so heart-centered in everything you do, and it's so natural, and you're just so naturally always in tune, and I just love it. So thank you so much for being on. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Until next time, namaste.